Hello, 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 everyone. I always forget to close those blinds, but hello. Thank y'all so much for joining me. So, the question of the day is, can we be too ambitious or can we be too uncomfortable? And do either of those create disengagement in the workplace? So, can we be too ambitious or can we be too comfortable when it comes to our professional growth? And how does that show up in the workplace and how does that show up in our engagement? So that is the question of the day. Hello everyone. My name is Lapora Lindsay for those of you who do not know me, and I speak about all things that are workplace value. So if you're curious about what is workplace value and why are you talking about engagement if you're talking about workplace value, I'm gonna break it down for you really quick. So, when I talk about workplace value, essentially, this is about how effort is translated in the workplace. It is not just where it is seen, but how it is also seen as being or used as being beneficial to those who either work on the same team as us, those who work in the same uh, department as us, or even those who work in the same organization. So that is workplace value. And so when we talk about engagement, this is essentially how we are engaged in the work that we do, otherwise known as creating workplace value. So, back to the question of the day, what we are talking about today, and that is, can we be too ambitious or can we be too content? And I would love to hear from you all before I share my perspective. If you think we can be too ambitious or if you think we can be too content. There is no right or wrong answer here. It's just a matter of what you lean towards. That is the question of the day. So feel free to comment if you have questions, if you have anything that you want to share here. I would love to hear from you. I'd also love to hear where you tuning in from. So, how I got on this topic of too ambitious versus too content or too comfortable is I actually saw a post earlier this week and I was really interested in it because it was actually something that I had written a little blog article on a couple months back. And it got me thinking this is definitely a topic that is worth reconsidering and bringing up again because it's so important. And that post was essentially about how there is oftentimes an overlay between being ambitious versus content. And it got me going back to this question, can we be too ambitious or can we be too content when it comes to progress, when it comes to us looking for opportunities to grow? And I have to say that I do believe the two can work together, that they don't have to be opposites. And when it comes to opposites, I think so much of what we talk about when it comes to professional development, when it comes to how can we move forward in the workplace, so much is about if we're not this, then we're that. If we are not moving forward, then we are stagnant. If we are not asking questions, then we don't want to know. Like so much of professional development is either or. But I think that when we get into this mindset of it being, you have to be this way and you have to be this way all the time. And if you're not, then you're not growing or you're not open minded or you're not ambitious. That is where we get stuck. We get stuck because we're not allowing ourselves the intricacy, the complexity that comes with growth. Not everybody's going to grow the same way. Not everybody is going to grow the same way. And so we have to be open to what does that look like? And specifically today when we're talking about ambition and we are ambition and contentment and we're tying it to engagement or workplace value. So typically when we look at ambition, I'm going to break it down really simple. We look at ambition equals good. This is good, ambition. Comfort or contentment equals risky. Cool. A lot of people, and because of this, a lot of people call themselves ambitious. I don't know if you've ever had a conversation with someone and when you're talking to them and they're like, yeah, they're talking about all of their dreams, all of the things that they have planned. Very few people, when you talk to them about their professional development, very few people are going to say something along the lines of, oh, I'm really content with where I am. I'm comfortable with how I'm growing where I am. Because other people, they'll sit back and they'll be like, how can you really be comfortable? Right? Because that's the message that we're getting a lot of times is how can you really be comfortable with where you are? But is it possible that someone can be content in where they are? They can be happy in the position that they have. They can have joy in the work that they do and still look for more and still be open to what is next. Because when we tell people, don't be comfortable, don't lean into the comfort, lean into the discomfort, that tells me a couple of things. That tells me that we cannot be comfortable with or we cannot experience any discomfort with ambition or comfort with ambition. And it tells me that if we are comfortable, we are in the wrong. When I know I'm gonna use a little southern phrase, y'all. I know good and tea well that is not always the case. I want to share with you, if I can do this right, this image. Give me just a moment here. Okay, I think I have it. This was an image I created some time ago, which I think really gets this. Nope, it's still not there. Y'all give me just one more moment. There it is. Okay. Which I think kind of gets this point across a little bit. So you see here, we have contentment and we have ambition. Now, if it's just contentment, there is a complacency risk that has the potential to show up, right? And if it's just ambition, there is also a frustration risk because we're constantly looking for the next best thing. And if we're constantly looking for the next best thing, it's really hard to be happy of where things are now. And so, what I am talking about today is there an opportunity there to look for where the growth happens, which is contentment, but also ambition? Essentially, allowing them to work together, allowing them to work together, because that is where growth can happen. I want y'all to think about that for a little bit. We don't have to be afraid of being comfortable. I think we have a bad habit. I think we have a bad habit of pushing people to the next extreme, the next thing. And actually, this reminds me of a conversation that I had with Linda Clark a couple of weeks ago, right here on this live stream when we were talking about disengagement. And one of the points that Linda brought up was when you have these professionals who were like the 99 when it comes to performance reviews, they are competing at the, or they are, completing those tasks at the 99. Like they're doing really, really good at the 99. And you still have supervisors who are saying, but here's how we can take this to the next level. Here's how we can get this 1%. Or if they're performing at, 94%, here's how we can get that 6%. And Linda and I both agreed that when we do this, when we're consistently pushing someone to that next level, a very tiny level, but we're saying, hey, you can get to that next percent. What's going to happen is people are going to, do the opposite. They won't continue to look for the next best thing. They're going to get frustrated because it's always How can I do better? How can I do more? But not everything is about that. And then I've seen people who are content with where they are. They are not interested in going any further. They enjoy where they are. And there's nothing wrong with that. The challenge with that, with the contentment piece, is, are you still growing? And that is a question that you have to ask. Am I still growing? Growth is not synonymous with promotion. Growth is not synonymous with a position change. You don't need that to grow. You don't need a new position or a new promotion to grow. I want you to think about that. And before someone says, well, how do you grow? There is growth in knowledge. There is growth in learning the skills and abilities that are required. There is even growth in, what am I going to do with the finances that I have gathered from this position? Because not everyone views a position as being their only identity. It is only a part of who we are. It is not all of who we are. And if we view our professional role as being a part of who we are and not all of who we are, then we allow ourselves to be proud of the work that we have accomplished thus far, proud of the fact that we are in this position, and yet still looking for opportunities to grow. Whether that is a promotion, whether that is a salary increase, whatever that looks like. But to get to that point, what I have found is that we have to look a little bit closer. Each person, we each have to look closer at, what does our journey look like, that professional development journey. Because when we are solely just ambitious, we don't allow ourselves to stay long enough in one position to be comfortable. When we are always looking for the next thing, it's really hard to honor and celebrate and recognize where we are. And just because you stay in a certain role, it does not mean that you are not growing. You have to define what growth looks like for you. No one else can do that. I mean, you can listen to people that tell you this is what growth looks like, and this is what it means to be successful, and this is what it means to be valuable. Absolutely, you can do that. But what else will you gain? All right, y'all. I was probably having my preaching voice on today. But I really do believe that this is such an important conversation to have. And I want you to think about it throughout the week. Are you primarily focused on ambition, or are you primarily focused on contentment? Ambition, which, if we're only focused on being ambitious, there will come with it a frustration risk. And if we are only focused on contentment, there will come with it a complacency risk. But we can grow with contentment, and we can be content with where we are and still be ambitious. We don't have to live in an either or realm. We can live in a realm that has layers, that has dynamics, that has changes, that has transitions, that has evolutions, just as we do as human beings that work in a professional development aspect. And what we do at work is only a part of who we are. It is not all of who we are. All right. That is all that I have to share today, as we are continuing this journey on workplace value, as we are continuing this on engagement. the summary of today is, was it too ambitious or too comfortable? Because they can both lead to disengagement. And what we have kind of come to the conclusion of is that perhaps it can be both, and we don't have to isolate one in order to achieve the other, but finding that way to integrate both into our professional lives. On that note, I hope that y'all have an amazing week. And hey, if you have questions, if you have comments and you're catching this replay, feel free to put them there in the chat. I would absolutely love to hear from you. And remember to stay adding value. All right, y'all. Have a good